Hello and welcome to DefTalk, the talk show that focuses on everything Warcraft, whether it's classic, retail, or the players that play it. I am Defcamp. We have, of course, with us my wonderful brother Melderon. How you doing, Melderon?
I am Melderon.
And our guest today, our very special guest, we have with us Sabever. How you doing, man? How's it going?
Howdy, guys.
All right. So, if you guys don't know, we have a lot of people that come on the show that are not just content creators, but are also members of the community. And we have Sabever with us today, so he's going to talk to us about just his experience and everything. So let's start off with where we start off with everyone. What was your experience when you first started playing WoW? When did you first started playing, and how were you introduced to it?
I was part of a first-person shooter guild competitively in Team Warfare League, and there was a couple other ladders. And they were a bunch of guys that were really pretty competitive in the first-person shooter market. But after World of Warcraft came out, a lot of the guys started playing that after we'd get done with our matches, and they kind of introduced me to it just in the context of me wanting to play with them. I really didn't have any experience with an MMO or an RPG, and I just had really made friends with those people and wanted to continue to play with them. So that's really how I got started in World of Warcraft. I'm guessing I tried to look this up today to make an estimate, but I'm guessing it was around between patch 1.6 and 1.7.
Okay,
Okay.
a little bit before
Right
us.
around
Yeah.
us. So that was a little bit before I'm pretty sure we started like right around 1.8, but it's so long ago, it's hard to remember. But
So how were you introduced? Did someone tell you about the game, or you just kind of found out about it?
Well, back in the day, they were always on TeamSpeak, and they would have certain TeamSpeak channels that they'd be on, and I could see that they were always playing World of Warcraft, and I was very apprehensive into
mm,
getting into an MMO. Kind of looked up a little bit about it, and just really wanted to continue to play with my friends. A couple of friends that I played with at the time, the clan was called Silver Spray, but a couple of them were on a particular server, and they really tried to get me to come over and play with them, and eventually I did.
oh, that's awesome. So was it a shock when you first started playing an MMO? Was it a lot different than what you were used to? And was it where you felt like a chicken with his head cut off running around?
Very much so. The other the other thing about it too is that a lot of times in first person shooters, it's kind of a very competitive environment, and you're not tied to a character like obviously like you are now. You can change your name at any time. Obviously, in Steam, it's a little bit easier anymore, but because of it, sometimes people would come up with some pretty antagonistic names, and
Mm.
I rolled on an RP PvP server, and I had a very antagonistic name, and it took about 1 day before they basically told me, you're changing your name. This is your first warning. Next time you're going to be
Wow.
banned.
One day, it actually took me to get to level 60 for them to find me. And like mine was pretty bad too. But I guess it has to do with someone reporting you, either that or them noticing it. But like mine was, it was kind of funny. It wasn't like bad. It was just, it was something funny. And I guess someone was just like, oh, that's stupid, and reported me for it. So I named my name, flagged name after that, and that stuck for a while until I changed it again afterwards. And people thought they were like, "Oh, well, your name's flag name. You have to change it." I'm like, "No, that's I named myself flag name." And it was pretty funny, but yeah, I'm surprised they got after 1 day. Wow.
Must have been a really bad name.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was a
do you
pretty
feel brave
inappropriate
enough
name.
to say it or?
No, but oddly enough, I told another friend of mine. He started later about it because we were kind of reminiscing after they announced Classic, and I was telling him about my first hunters of this, or the first characters that I made. And the second that I told him that name, he just couldn't stop laughing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. We were younger. We were younger, and we were a lot more. I don't know. It was just the times back then. It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
different. Yeah.
So what was your first character in race and faction?
Well, the first character that I ever made, once I, paid the subscription fee or logged in with a credit card number, my friends were not on, so I did not know what server they were on. And I rolled a rogue, and I don't know if you remember, but there was a movie that came out called Rogue. I want to say probably just a couple of years before World of Warcraft, and that movie, and it has nothing to do with fantasy elements at all. But because of the name of the movie, I thought, okay, I'm gonna roll a rogue, and I rolled one and kept spirit resing. Didn't have any idea at how I had to find my body or things like that. And eventually, I just got sick of playing the rogue. And then after they told me what server to play on, I started as a mage, and then ultimately settled on leveling a warrior to level 60 for my first 60.
Wow, you chose the hard route.
Yeah, I didn't know it at the time.
Of course, yeah. So did I. My first character was a warrior, and I was horrible at it. So.
Yeah, he was very, very bad. He after every pull.
Sorry, were you
have to like
Alliance or Horde? Sorry.
Horde.
Okay, good. Just making.
Oh, nice.
Otargar. Yeah, good.
Yeah, but after every pull, Melderon would sit there, eat, bandage, have to get like a food buff.
I just would like basically white hit, and I'd be like, why can't I get any damage output? Meanwhile, I'm like wearing like intellect gear and like having my talents in like protection with the two-hander, and I'm like, oh yeah, shields are awesome, but I'm not wearing one. It's like it was so bad, such a horrible gamer back then.
So is that your loyalty? Is it for the Horde? Or is it do you sway back and forth?
I played I did a faction in Wrath of the Lich King 2 Alliance, and I thought to myself, I play a human in real life. This is so boring.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I don't need to play one on my gaming time too. And I don't really like the aesthetics of the Alliance very much. And I also think that there's generally a personality difference between the people that play Horde and play Alliance. And it's not that there's anything wrong with the people that play Alliance, but back in the vanilla days, I think that typically the younger players played Alliance, and mainly because World of Warcraft itself came coattails of Lord of the Rings, and all the Lord of the Rings character race, Alliance races. So
I'll admit, like I was 16. So WoW actually came out on my 16th birthday, 2004, November 23rd. It was my 16th birthday, and so I was pretty young at the time. But I didn't start playing until I was like 17. But I was a huge fan of Lord of the Rings, and I would probably say that might be the reason why I was so swayed to playing an elf, because I was really engulfed in the Lord of the Rings fantasy at the time. I still am today. I mean, I love Lord of the Rings. I thinking about it now, like after you said that, I think that was probably one of the reasons why I did pick Alliance, because I wanted to play, even though I hate Night Elves now. I hate everything about them. I hate the way they die when they make that sound. I hate the way they walk. I hate the way they jump. I hate everything about them. But back then, it was like, oh, cool, an elf. Let me play it. You know what I mean? So that's interesting. I didn't even think about that. Now I'm like, wow, that was probably why I picked it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you what race you said? Orc?
Orcs are definitely my favorite race.
Yeah.
That said, I don't have any orc characters. Kind of the lore behind the different orc clans and things like that. But I play caster and I love PvP, so I play undead.
Yeah, well, undead is
nice.
I think it's the most popular race on the undead, correct?
On
the Horde prior to TBC.
Yeah, I think 40% of the population of Horde on private servers, at least for what I know now, play Forsaken. So I think they have the coolest lore, and is lore something that you like to delve into, or?
It is. I for a while junkie. There's a big dichotomy really now between vanilla World of Warcraft lore and retail World of Warcraft lore, really, with how retail has kind of devolved into the Void Lords and things like that. I mean, I loved the Cthulhu stuff, but it wasn't a central story arc of the game at the time. But the undead lore, I mean, I played Warcraft 3. It's somewhat interesting to me, but I really like the orc clans a lot more.
What's your favorite? What orc clan is your favorite?
Oh, I would say, geez, that's going to be tough, but I'd probably say the war songs, mainly because my favorite character would be Grom Hellscream, and I don't mean the Grom Hellscream from WoD. I mean,
you mean the original Grom Hellscream?
We know.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Grom was awesome.
Grom, the war song's pretty awesome. I don't know who my favorite would be. I mean, I could say
the
Frost Wolves.
Wolves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
it's funny because I had spent a lot of my time advocating for vanilla on MMO Champion, and I had seen some threads on there where people were arguing like who is the most powerful character, and I was thinking to myself, you guys know Grom Hellscream one-shotted two what are they called?
Demon Lord, or what do they call those big demon guys? Damn it.
Yeah, no, I
I can't think of the
Legion.
name. No, the big ones, like the big ones that walk up, like with
Pit Lords.
Pit
yeah,
Lords.
Pit Lord.
Yeah.
And he killed a demigod.
Wait,
Yeah, but nobody beats what's his name? The brother of the one who hit almost killed Sargeras. He was the only one who made
Braxigar. You're talking about
Braxigar. Yeah.
Ferrex Sarafang.
Yeah. Dude, like I think he's the most powerful. I mean, he's the only person who actually like injured, other than whatever happened in Legion, who actually injured Sargeras. Like that's badass,
sure.
Dude.
Yeah, no. I think that it would be tough to argue with anybody but Braxigar, but I mean anybody that's touchable. I think people undervalue the power of or the strength of Hellscream.
Yeah, that's true. I would agree with that.
Especially when what was it, man? You know, in the World
Man
Warcraft 3 cinematic, and I think they said it on purpose. I see you brought the mighty Hellscream.
Yep. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I think he especially in like he's such a cool character, and I wish we, even though it is the lore, like I wish we could have saw more of him in World of Warcraft, obviously, but that's the lore. So I want to see did you see any of the new? Do you watch any of the new cinematics? The Old Soldier one that just came out recently. Did you catch that, or any of the other new ones?
I saw. Yeah, I watched the Old Soldier one with Varric Sarfang, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I watched that. I only watched it twice though. So if you're going to ask me anything detailed,
I just want to ask what you think of it. Did you like it or?
Well, I really liked Blizzard does just such a great job on their cinematic.
Yeah, they do.
The one thing really bothered me about the video, and I feel like Blizzard does this a little bit too much, and it's, I'm a Horde person, and I don't want to pick on the Alliance people, but they seem to baby the Alliance a little bit. Yeah. And Varric Sarfang said something in the video that really kind of bothered me. He said, they're all going to come for us. And I thought to myself, like, why would an orc care?
That's a good point. I mean, orcs want honor and war, and it's also funny because that's also true because Alliance always attack you in numbers anyway, right? They never attack you one-on-one.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but if I'm
that was a bad World PvP
I don't care
joke,
if I die at the hands of 1,000 people.
Yeah, exactly. It's you're dying with honor. That's an honorable.
They're basically
death.
like Klingons, right?
Yeah.
So they're very similar. Yeah. If you're a Star Trek fan, but basically Klingons and orcs are basically the same thing. They want to die an honorable death, and they want to die in glorious battle, right? So
yeah, and they both love opera.
Yeah, they both and Shakespeare. So let's just we can talk about lore all day, but so I'm just trying to think like so. Your warrior got the 60. Did you do any endgame content with him?
A little bit. My content in vanilla was very limited, and it was exclusively on my warrior. I played a warrior, and warriors were in high demand even back then.
Oh yeah.
And I was an arms warrior. I didn't know anything about Fury, but I still would off tank, particularly the 10 and 15 man dungeons. And so I got invited to a lot of that stuff. I did not back in vanilla have any experience in any of the 40 man content.
Yeah, we basically I did MC. I did it like a pug, and I did a lot of Zolgrub. But mostly, I think for me, it was mostly just PvP, honestly. I mean, like I did ZG a few times to get some gear. And like if back then, it seemed like at least for me, it seemed like a lot of the casuals were doing like ZG and doing like, the for me, it was like the easier content. I got into MC to I remember the first time I did MC, I was subspect. And I'm sitting there and I'm like I asking like people like, what do I do for my rotation? I had no idea what to do. They were like, just basically use Sinister Strike and Slicing Us. I was like, well, I have Hemo, so I'm just going to use that. And I don't know. It just was, I had no raid experience at that time. So for me, it was like I did MC, I think twice, and I didn't even clear, didn't get to kill Rag. And then I did a couple ZG pugs, and that was it. That was my raid experience in vanilla. That's why I'm so excited to be able to, I mean, like, yeah, I've done it like on private servers, but to be able to do it on another Blizzard server, I'm like really excited for. Is that something that you are looking forward to too?
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to give it a shot.
Yeah. I just wish like so bad that I was a little bit more into it and like into rating then, but at least we'll be able to get that Blizzard experience again.
Yeah, so you've alluded to this in our email conversations when we were setting up this interview, but not to put you on blast, but I'm in the same boat as you are. We're older now, right? And I'm not saying that you're old or I'm old or anybody's old, but we are older now, obviously, than we were back then. And you alluded to you having responsibilities like family and job and stuff like that. So, just out of curiosity, how can people like us kind of, if we want to engage ourselves with in-game content, how do we engage ourselves in that without becoming burned out or having our wives leave us or something like that?
Well, you probably have more experience, at least on the private server in-game content that I do, but I think that there's a couple easy ways, at least from my conversations with the friends of mine that do plan on coming back, who are also older, is one easy way is you can play a support class. They're just always in demand. People are going to help you get keyed for your or attuned for your instances,
Yep.
and you don't also have to collect as a DPS class. There's kind of a requirement. You better be collecting a lot of your best in slot gear to be able to help help kill the bosses, because DPS is significantly important in, especially in Molten Core, keeping some of these fights under 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as people like myself and the friends of mine that plan on coming back, I don't necessarily have any expectation that I'm necessarily going to raid. I'm going to try and find a guild who will have somewhat of an accommodating schedule and would accommodate a player like myself, who I would try. But I think also we've gotten a lot better at the game. I don't know when. I mean, obviously on the server, which may not be able to be named on your channel. I don't know how long you guys to level to 60 anymore, but I would say 7, 8 days played for myself. It's not that long anymore, and then.
Yeah.
A couple more days spending on getting some keys and a little bit of gear, and it's not as daunting as I used to think it was.
Yeah. And that's a really good point about the about being a support class, because you really have less, and it is again like a luck of the draw a lot. Like I just did BRD probably 17 times in the last 2 days, still haven't got my Hammer of Grace. So it's like, a lot of luck of draw, but at least being a support, you don't really have other people you're rolling against. Like when we do those EMP runs for BRD, we've got like 3 guys waiting for that Hodge trinket. You know what I mean? So it's a lot harder to get that DPS trinket or that DPS sword that everyone's rolling on. At least if you're a support class, you're usually the only one like rolling on it until you get to, of course, raid setting. So that's a good point. I didn't even think about that before. If someone is a returning player and you want to try to manage your time as much as you can, you might want to look to a support class. I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah, I never thought about that either, and I think that's why I'm gravitating to support classes.
Yeah, right.
I was just maybe, because I mean, well, I've always played either tank or healer, but now that I'm playing shaman, I feel like that I can kind of make my own adventure, I guess you could say, and I can, if I maybe don't have the time to raid, I can always just switch to enhancement or elemental and just do some battlegrounds, and I think that's kind of the amazing thing about hybrids, is that you can kind of jump into anything pretty quickly. And you can be, if you do want to get into a group content, you can get into it rather quickly because you have some healing or tanking capabilities. So that's a really good point. I like that. So I noticed the picture you send me for your is a warlock. So did you play warlock as well in vanilla, or did that come later?
I started the warlock out, and really the warlock was probably what I really played the most in my WoW or retail WoW career. But definitely played the warlock at the end of vanilla. Really started doing battlegrounds, and loved Alterac Valley. And the second I saw the warlock mount, I thought, okay, yeah, I'm rolling whatever gets that thing. And I actually just fell in love with the class. The class, really how dynamic it was in vanilla and BC, when there was a lot of class dichotomy, when everybody wasn't cookie cutter as they are now. They were really, really fun to play, and a lot of the people who really focused on it, they were good at everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point. Yeah, and warlocks I think are one of those classes where they have such a unique play style,
Yeah.
and they have I think they're really
So
cool.
many
I
options too.
personally never got into them, but I think that if I had more time, I would definitely play them and see what it's like, because they just have so much
Yeah.
utility. And
Yep. And options. That's the thing for me is like the options. Like, you know, look at for me. Like, I really like Warlocks in the Burning Crusade. I'm not too familiar with them in vanilla, but in the Burning Crusade, they are the kings of DPS. Like, you are just the most DPS. It's insane. So amazing at PvP. Amazing at PvP in vanilla as well. I mean, a lot of players like to make fun of warlocks who use a succubus because it's so cheap in a way, especially like when a rogue up on you and you have that succubus. But there's so much control, and I feel like the players who understand the skill set that the warlock has would have such a bigger advantage over those who really are not that familiar with it. Like there's so many little nuances and little things about the warlock that really can enhance your playstyle, enhance your PvP skills. And that's a really cool thing about the Warlock. It's like you have to unravel them a little bit at a time. There's like little things that you can find out, like, oh, this can make my DPS better, or I can do this to get out of a cheap shot, or do this to get out of a fear. Just different stuff. It's like really cool. I think they're kind of
They
like
are. There's a lot of
mysterious.
things that you can do with the pets that automatically augment how really more useful in a lot of PvP cases, but they do some surprising things, and I think people kind of mastered them later in like Burning Crusade and
Mm,
Wrath of the Lich King on how to utilize those abilities, and people became really good at using them. But the current iteration in retail of Warlock is not the same as the past
no,
iterations.
definitely not. I played a lock in. I mained a lock in Warlords, and it was like Destro. I think Destro lock, like looking back, is probably one of the cool specs in vanilla, in BC, in Wrath, in like cat, in almost every expansion. Destro was just awesome. Like you got these long casts, really powerful, spells, and if you really know what you're doing, all you really need to do is get like two cast off, and you can kill somebody. And I feel like that has just kind of disappeared from the.
Mhm.
They feel like nothing like that anymore. It's like getting hit with a wet noodle when you chaos bolt somebody. It's ridiculous. I don't know what they did to that class.
yeah, I don't know either. But we were talking previously before the interview, and you said you had some tips and tricks that you'd like to highlight, maybe that people don't know about warlocks. And I one of them was about fearing, I believe. If you can elaborate on that one.
Yeah, actually, there's quite a few. I'd have to really back and think about them. I had been planning, when I was on Northdale, at kind of bringing some of those up and making some videos on them. But for example, in Cataclysm, they came out with a glyph that permitted you to, when you cast Fear, allowed you to have your mob stay in place. So it allowed warlocks to effectively have a reliable CC that wasn't the charm effect from the succubus, particularly when they weren't going to have the succubus out in an instance environment anyway. And there's a lot of vanilla veterans or private server veterans have probably known about this for ages, and it's something worthwhile for the retail community who's planning on coming and playing in Classic to know about. But basically, when you fear, you basically have a random chance at what path they're going to take, and because of its unreliability, fear becomes a really poor use of CC in instance environments, or where there's close elite mobs or close mobs and that are close to your. But basically, you can control a mob with fear by using Curse of Recklessness. Curse of Recklessness in vanilla negates the effect of the fear, but it does not remove the fear. So once you cast the fear, which uses a base mana amount, so every version of fear that you get that is the best one to use. It just adds additional duration to the fear attack. But you fear somebody, and if it starts going in a path that you don't want, or starts going toward mobs where you don't want them to go, you just throw Curse of Recklessness on them, and they leash back, and they leash back to the Warlock. But once they get close enough to the Warlock, you just throw on another curse. I typically used to use Agony if you have exhaustion, you would use exhaustion because that'll slow them down as well. So.
That's really cool.
So
That's like,
so sorry. So after they leech back to you and you curse that other curse, well, actually they'll start to walk away again. Is that what you're?
Well, the fear remains on them the entire time. So
Yeah.
once you cast fear, it's on. Let's say the final level fear is 25 seconds. So let's say they start fearing towards the mobs, and you know they're going to get close, and you know they're gonna face pull a bunch of mobs. So you throw recklessness on them. Recklessness will force that mob to come to you or whoever's highest on their threat table, which if obviously if they haven't been hit is going to be you. It'll force them to come back to you, and then the second that you replace recklessness with another curse, it takes off that recklessness effect, which causes them to ignore the fear. Now putting the other and causing the fear then to take effect again.
I see.
that's so cool.
Okay, that's really neat.
The
and
really
it
cool
does
thing
work
about that,
on the private servers the exact same
Right.
way that it worked on vanilla.
And the thing is, like, I really don't see that many people doing it because so we go in the dungeon and a lot of warlocks when we're in a dungeon they'll use their succubus, but that's a huge damage decrease because you basically want to be using your what's it called when you kill your
Sacrifice.
sacrifice your succubus, you get that damage
Okay.
buff, right? What's it, 15% or something like that?
I think the succubus is 15% of shadow
Right.
damage.
So instead of using your succubus to CC the target, you can still sacrifice and do that as a good CC, and that's so cool. You really don't see that many people doing it, so that's a really cool trick. I like that
and then
a
of
lot.
course too, if you bring out the succubus, you lose the imp blood pact effect. So.
Exactly. Right.
So you also mentioned something called warlock juggling. Is that what that's called, or is that something different?
That's what I used to call it. I learned this from a guy I used to play with who was also planning on coming back to Classic named Black Sage. He was a guy who apparently had played Warlock for a long time and knew all these tips and tricks. He's actually the one who showed me the recklessness ability too. And what you could do is typically, you can easily tank with your Voidwalker 2 to 3 mobs before it becomes dangerous. But there is a way to. I'm not very good at it, but I did make a couple videos of it on one of the private servers. But you can successfully juggle 5 or 6. It's just a lot harder, and you start getting pretty low on mana once you do the 5 or 6.
I would assume so. Yeah. Wow. So what's the? Sorry, I'm just trying to I'm having trouble imagining how this works. So you have all 5 targets on the Voidwalker at once, or are you fearing them and?
No, you're typically sometimes you lose control with the Voidwalker on them, and they come back and you have to body tank one of them. But Warlocks can do that pretty easily.
Yeah.
But what you would do is you would typically like a 4 pull. You would start out with the Voidwalker, and then you would put Siphon Life and Curse of Agony, because Curse of Agony is obviously going to take a little bit longer to build up where it gets to the significant threat points. And I would. Then you hit the next one, put a couple of dots on it, hit the next one, put a couple of dots on it. Usually I'm only going to go with dots on 3 of them. And I know that Vanilla's tab targeting is a little bit unreliable, but at that point you're tanking 4 mobs because the other one's just going to be stuck on you. And you don't want it to get to the point where you're having to heal the Voidwalker yet. But then once you're going to start you're going to kind of juggle back and forth the target. And then of course he's going to use, I can't think of the term of the ability, but he does basically an AoE taunt, which is just a static threat increase. And you'll do it on them until you have to heal, and then you'll attack the 4th target. And then once you have to heal him, you're using the lives to raise your health while you are channeling that health that you're losing to the Voidwalker.
So cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, this is why vanilla is
not
amazing.
It's cool, but it's not that reliable. I mean, if I tried it in a dungeon, the Voidwalker would be dead in about 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because they're elite mobs, sure, but this is an amazing leveling tip that and this is another thing I think about why vanilla is it's just so complex, beautifully complex, and I think that's stuff like this that I of course never heard of, but I'm sure there's people out there who's like, duh, yeah, of course I've heard of this Melderon, but I'm sure a lot of people haven't, and it's just interesting to think about this and. Talk because everyone thinks 4 to 5 mobs is instant death for any class, right? But no, Warlock, if you know what you're doing and if you're putting the right energy towards the right things and you have this rotation and plan and it's like a chess match, you're able to kind of survive this otherwise deadly encounter. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
I've died a lot making videos trying to do it, but you can do it. It's more. I believe that it's more effective. I watched a video with Marky Mark about Warlock leveling and kind of how it evolved through the years. And I used to try this juggling a lot, and it's really hard to do. And after some more experience on private servers, I agree with him. It's easier to just use the wand on a target. You kill the target so fast with the wand.
Yeah, it's true. But where's the fun in that, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're competing with mobs, so like the server's new and somebody's doing a quest and you want to try to get these items as quick as possible. That the quest that say that mobs drop, you want to try to tag as many guys as you can, and boom, there you go. That's a good option for it if you have.
That's true.
Yeah. So there's and that's the thing that I love. Like you were saying, Melderon, like it's like a chess match. In vanilla WoW, there's so many little things you're thinking about. You're thinking about, am I going to get ganked? Can I do this right now? Or should I only get one mob because there's an alliance guy behind me over there? Or, are there other horde guys around me that are trying to, that I try to invite them into the group, but they're not accepting it. It happens all the time. And, basically you're fighting these guys for the items for the quest. So do you want to get as many guys as you can? It's like these little things that you have to think about. And I feel like that over time has just been lost and lost and lost to the current, I don't know what, I think BFA is out today. I don't know what that's like because I haven't played it, but back in vanilla, it was like you have all these little intricacies that are little things that you can play with. And that's what I love so much. And the Warlock class seems like they have some of the most little things that you can play with out of all the classes.
Yeah. It just never ceases to amaze me, the stuff that you just keep learning every day in this game. And I think that, and people say like, oh yeah, you learn everything. You can learn every day about retail too. And I'm like, yeah, you can, but I don't know. It seems different to me. It seems like it's just, I don't know what that means, but it just seems like it's a different way. It's a different, because the game's so old, and you think to yourself like, why? How can you learn new things from this game? But you just can every day, and it just keeps coming and coming and coming. So that brings up a point, actually. So, as we always talk about with pretty much everybody we have on this talk show, we talk about, like, well, changes versus no changes. And, of course, we have a lot of information, somewhat, it's a good source of information that we're probably going to be dealing with the 1.12 talent system. But that doesn't mean that there can't be other changes that are going to come in. So what's your stance on changing the classic game? Do you think we need changes? Do you think we don't need changes? And if you're kind of in the middle, which things would you change?
I'm no changes. I would prefer absolutely no changes. I mean, we know to some extent we're not going to give that with 112. But I think, although I'm no changes, are there changes I would accept and still play the game? Yeah, sure. I think it's. I just want to go back and play the classic version of the game. If they made it just like it was on a private server, that technically includes significant changes, I'd be happy with that.
Are there some changes that would just be deal breakers for you, like maybe like new character models?
That would come close to being a deal breaker for me, mainly because I don't remember when. I want to say it was Warlords of Draenor, the pre-patch, where they introduced new character models. It might have been Mist of Pandaria, but they basically have a toggle where you can supposedly go back.
Yeah,
and it doesn't work.
No
matter how hard I
it doesn't work for the the character model, the animations. I don't think it works for either.
The casting animations are better in vanilla.
Oh, so much better. So much better.
Yeah, you don't like you're playing like some kind of like, you're not like in a Disney musical or something. When
I know we say this a lot, but like, God, like the new Tarns and the new humans, it just look so
they look very cartoony.
You know what I noticed today? I was watching a Heels versus Babyface video, and So he was like running on his Tauren. It looks like the Tauren's gonna fall on his head. Did you ever notice that? Like he's like really forward. He's like really really forward, and it looks like he's gonna fall and hit his like snout on the ground. And I'm like, he's gonna fall. He's gonna fall. He's gonna fall. And then, that's how it looks the entire time he's running. And I just started laughing, and I was like, that's why I'm laughing at this, because I wanted to see his review, his BFA review, and he gave it a 6.5. Heels
6.1?
6.5 out of 10.
Oh.
Yeah. His patching.
Yeah, he's pretty pro classic guy, but a couple things that I actually had not thought about this until I saw one of Defcamp's videos was that really the art style back in classic was just so much darker that it was, even though the graphic, the quantity of pixels or the resolution is better in the current version of the game, it doesn't seem better. But I was also listening to a changes versus no changes debate on Countdown to Classic the other day.
Great one. Yeah.
What I didn't like was that when they talked about changes to the visuals, it really let the pro changes people frame the argument in a way that was different than people typically frame it when they say when we want updated graphics. They mean we want updated character model.
Yeah.
But I thought about something in that with one of their changes when they talked about render distance. One of the no changes debaters had a really good point, is that because of the render distance, it really does make the world seem so much bigger. And at the same time, is that element of fear that you don't know when you go further. Is there an elite mob there? Is there, enemy faction guys there? It really makes the world feel a lot bigger.
It does. We talked about this with Orkbit yesterday. When we did the interview with him, and I brought that up, and for me, because we're talking about now like the 1.12 core, right? But with the current game data, so a lot of fears are that we're going to get a classic WoW that is going to look something similar to maybe what we saw in like Wrath or something like that, because of this is just the way I'm thinking. So. And that draw distance was like one of, and of course the draw distance, the weather effects. I'm like, I don't want to be able to like be on top of say, Ironforge. No, like where you're looking out of Ironforge.
Oh yeah.
I had this one video where I did it. I looked out of Ironforge, and you can literally see like all the way out to the wetlands. You can see out to Lochmodan. And like, yeah, I think some people think that's cool, but it makes the world feel so much smaller. And like when you can't see out past the next mountain ridge, it adds so much mysticism and just.
What comes to mind is actually Duskwall and Marsh. If you've ever been there, it's that fog, man. I'm like, do I go past this tree? Do I not go past this tree? Is there gonna be a crocodile over there? And Duskwall and Marsh to me is one of those zones where the fog or the whatever works really well. And Duskwood
is like, yeah. You're in the cemetery, and it's like what's over that fence over there. There could be Horde over there killing the Alliance. That's the other thing too, is like the distance, the view distance, where you can see players and things like that. If you can see them further, it's like you'll be able to maybe get out of a gank or whatever. But having that encounter where you're running down the road and then you're running down from Tower Mill to South Shore, and you're both going up the same road. And here's the Horde guy, and here's the Alliance guy coming up the same road, and then you just see each other. And you're like, okay, what do we do? Am I going to fight him? Am I going to keep running? Like those kind of encounters you lose out on because you can see him a mile away and just go a different direction. You know what I mean? So those little things about the graphics, those little things that I'm worried about, that just added so much to the game.
I don't want to interpret what that water cooler thing said, but I was under the impression when I read that they were starting with a version that was more advanced than vanilla, and they were going to try and draw it back as much as. So I'm optimistic about it.
Yeah.
You can never trust Blizzard to do anything right.
That's true.
I'm optimistic as well. And after people are going to say, why is Melderon talking about the burning of Teldrassil in a classic WoW talk show? Hold on, let me clarify this for a second. I think the burning of Teldrassil is great, and here's why. It makes classic that much more relevant. You can go back to a world where the Night Elves are still in Teldrassil.
Yep.
That's a huge thing, and I think
what they're trying to still in Undercity.
Yes, and that's the other point. Sorry, but I mean, that's a big thing people are talking about right now. That's why I'm bringing the Teldrassil thing up first. Is like, this is a world you can actually go back into and experience what it was before. And I think what they're doing, Blizzard's doing very smartly, is they're pushing the two things away more and more and more and more. Like we made a video call and we said basically the great graphical divide, and they're literally drawing a line in the sand. And I think that's what they're doing. They're trying to separate the two games because they're very, very different from each other, and they're trying to even separate the world and the lore as well. And I think that's may even be arguing why they would do patches past 1.12. Maybe it's an alternate timeline kind of thing. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe we'll see.
But we'll see.
But
I know Defcamp wants TBC to come out, so.
Yeah. But one thing I really like when we're talking about the Countdown to Classic episode, and the one thing that I was waiting for someone to bring up, they brought up the water cooler, but nobody brought up the job posting, which specifically was for someone to create the graphics to make them look more like how they were in vanilla. So I was like, when is somebody going to bring that up? Because they talked about the water cooler that came out with the what they wanted, all these things, but nobody brought up the point of the job posting that was put up. And I'm like, guys, somebody has to bring this up. Somebody has to bring this up. And that's why I wanted to talk about it, because clearly in that job posting, it said that they want to find someone to try to bring that feeling of mysticism back. I mean, I could even pull it up. They even say they want the weather effects back. They want all these things. So I think that would have been a really good thing to bring up. And, just like Melderon said, it differentiates the two games so much. We have the deeper, the darker feel that you have in vanilla. You have that other feel, whatever it is in the current game that you like, and it just clearly divides the two. And I think Blizzard is to make it feel as vanilla as it was. Might it be a little bit sharper to the point where maybe the shadows are just like circles? Maybe, I don't know, but I really want that deep dark feeling that you don't know what's around the corner. I want that, and I think that has to be there for it to feel like vanilla.
I agree. I think that, and I think that's what they're doing, and I think that actually things like this, these lore things, are actually making me feel a lot more comfortable about what's happening, because I think that's technically they're trying to change. They're changing the world. They're changing Azeroth even more. This is like the next Cataclysm. It's like Cataclysm version 2, right? So I think that it makes Classic more relevant. That's just how I feel.
How do you feel about that?
I don't disagree. I mean, with the changes they made to Uther's Tomb, there's certainly creating a clear separation between the two versions of the game. And graphics, it's so tough to debate something that appears to be so trivial on the surface. But I think when the debate first came out, when there was the community manager from World of Warcraft that came out and really opened people's eyes that they were considering possible changes. I remember back in vanilla when you would be in a 5-man dungeon, and I'm not going to use Naxxramas as an example because they used a little bit larger character models for the human Naxxramas. If you're in a 5-man dungeon, for example, Scholomance, Stratholme, you took on a human, they'd be the size of a human. Very immersive, very immersive. You go to Burning Crusade. Burning Crusade is where they started to make mistakes with it. If you remember Edgar Bladefist, he was at the end. I think it was Shattered Halls, wasn't it?
Yeah, he's at the end of Shattered Halls. Yes,
Shattered Halls.
Kargath,
he's like a 20-foot tall orc, and there's only why does he have to be 20 feet tall?
Yeah, I
never understood that from a lore perspective.
I hate that as well. Yeah,
I think they're just trying to make him look more menacing, but at the same time, it does like you said, it does the exact opposite. It actually breaks the immersion. And it's also impossible, right? So how are you going to have like these giant orcs or whatever?
Like why is Thrall so much bigger than the rest
Blizzard
of the orcs?
did it because in raids they wanted the boss to be easily distinguishable from melee.
Yeah.
But in doing so, one, they're really underselling the capability of a melee. I mean, you could just put an icon above the target and you can follow them around just fine. But it really did kill immersion. I mean, what was it? Kale Thought Fighter in BC was like his 20-foot tall blood elf.
Oh my god, yeah. And then they started doing it with all the heroes like Khadgar, Malfurion, all these people that are larger than life, characters. But these are characters that you're fighting with that you walked into Thrall when you walk into Orgrimmar and he was there and he was the size of a regular orc. you walk in and you look at the first time, all those leaders of the Horde, they were your size.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're what, like 8 feet tall. They're and it just makes it feel like in a way you're less important. I don't know. That's all I felt. Even though they try to make everyone happy
Yeah.
by giving everyone like the Ashbringer, all those
And tell them
things.
they're the hero of the alliance or hero
Yeah,
of the
you're the
horde.
hero of
Yeah.
the alliance, yet you're 3 feet smaller than everyone else. That I don't know. It's just like, for me, having that feeling of everyone being on just the same height, like as characters, that immersion that just makes it feel so much more real. I don't know. It's like such a little thing that someone could just not even notice, but to me, it definitely has a huge impact.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we also talked about before the interview. We talked about the NOS postmortem surveys, and so were you? I was very surprised. Were you surprised at the results? And what do you think it means for Classic WoW?
Yeah, I think one of the things, and we spoke about this a little bit earlier, but one of the things that I was surprised about was when I took the survey, just like I'm sure you guys did, and hundreds of thousands of other people took the survey, or tens of thousands. But what I was very surprised about was the demographic breakdown of the people who were playing on private servers. I had assumed the whole time that the people who were playing on classic servers were people like myself who wanted to relive a period of their time that they felt like was a little bit better game, and that we were going to be ending up with people taking the survey who averaged 35 to 40 years old.
Mm.
Oh, I guess Nas is probably 4 years retired from then, so maybe 32 to 36 years old at that time.
Right.
But I was really surprised that the majority of the people who took that survey were 20 to 25 years old. And what it tells me is kind of the younger generation of those people who really like classic, we all pay attention to them as content creators and things like that. They've really taken the mantle. But I think that there's this hidden group of people like myself who I do have some private server experience, but I did not want to download a BitTorrent to play the game, to play the 112.1 client. I didn't want to play the game. There's some debate. I don't believe it's unlawful to play a game that somebody comes out with, a server for you to play for free. But I don't want to waste my time playing a game in a server like Nestarius. Let's say I leveled to level 60. Let's say 10 to 12 days played, got my epic mount. Knowing me, I probably would have spent real money on getting my mount, and then just to have the developers say, we've got a cease and desist here. We don't really have any other choice. We're gonna close everything down.
Yeah.
I don't want to invest my time that way, and that kind of turned me off too. When the other server scandal came, where they were selling characters, I don't really want to call out their server or anything, but we all know what I'm talking about, and I don't want to invest my time and my resources. And I think that there's hundreds of thousands of other people like me, and I know I'm dealing with a really small sample size. But when they announced Classic, I got on my Facebook, started contacting people. I said, hey, do you plan on playing? Because if so, I want to play with you. Got on my Battle.net account, contacted those people, and I would say about a 3-to-1 ratio, people said yes, they plan on coming back.
Yeah.
Now, oddly enough, I don't think that most of these people will be playing hardcore. But I also think that's kind of another misnomer about vanilla, especially a lot of the videos I've seen lately where they say you have to mid-max. I would say, to the best of my memory, especially and keep in mind, I do not have a ton of raid experience in vanilla or on private servers, but I watch people's videos who play them all the time. I don't think that there is but 4 bosses in the game where you need every member of your raid to be doing something perfectly right.
Yeah,
I think you can have hybrids. Yeah. What's that?
Sorry, Orkbit agrees with you. He was saying the same thing in the last interview. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I apologize. I haven't heard.
No, dude, take your time. It just came out yesterday.
But yeah, I mean, I totally agree that people can play hybrid classes, people can play hybrid specs, and even as a player who played a warlock, there are specs for a warlock that are not the optimal specs to play that do almost as good of damage.
Yeah. Yep.
That's true. And you're right. I mean, these raid encounters, most of them were not built for 40 people being on their maximum game. They're built for maybe 25 to 30, and then the rest of them are basically, this is how you do it, learning people. Yeah, exactly.
And I definitely think you're right with there being, I feel like there is a massive amount, there's a silent but massive amount of people out there who, are in your age group, who are older, who haven't been really saying much, who haven't played on private. Like Melderon and myself, Melderon had to like drag me. I didn't want to download the client. I didn't want to do all that crap. I wanted to wait for Classic. If Classic ever was going to come out, my hope was down. And then when the announcement came out, and well, even before that, I finally did. But it really took me a while to get there to want to actually download the client, do all that work that I had to do. And it wasn't that much, but in my head it was. But I really feel like there is a huge amount of people out there
that are primarily in the 30 plus age bracket. Yeah.
And are like not silent, but they are not as loud as the rest of the group is. And that's going to be a huge amount of people that are coming to Classic. And like you said, they might not all be hardcore players, but guess what? Those people are going to bring the soul of vanilla with them. They're the ones who, maybe they didn't do this or that back in the vanilla, but they're the ones who had the stories. They're the ones who helped each other out. They're the ones who got the guild together. They're the ones who joined the local defense to fight back when the Alliance were raiding. They're the ones who are going to bring the heart and soul and the feeling of vanilla with them. And I feel like that is awesome because those are the people that we need, and to know that those people are out there and they're coming back when Classic comes out, it's a godsend because those people are going to make it so much better. I really believe that the people
preach, Reverend, preach.
The people who play this game is what makes the game.
Oh, absolutely.
In vanilla, yeah.
What would Azeroth be without us? Nothing.
Yep.
So it'd be a beautiful piece of empty space. That's basically we are it's Blizzard's game, but it's us that make it living, right? It's us that make it alive. So that's why it's so important that we have a voice, and that's why it's so important that we said what we wanted when we wanted Classic servers. Anyway, that was just that was really good. That was very empowering speech.
Hallelujah!
Hallelujah! Praise the Lord. Amen. So sorry, where were we? There was something. Oh yes, what I wanted to bring out was a point that you brought out, Sabever, when we were before the interview. Is you said, I think the most important thing. Might be mincing your words. The most important thing we get from the postmortem is that graphics don't really matter, do they? When you have these young kids playing, these younger people playing, even below the 18, I think they had people that were even younger than 18.
Mm-hmm.
What makes a good game? Is it graphics or is it gameplay? And I think it shows, this survey is important that it shows it's gameplay, not just graphics.
Yep. Yeah, you could definitely tell in vanilla. And I don't think a lot of the things that they did in vanilla were necessarily intentional, but really they gave you incentive to be out in the world. And I even remember back in BC, there was potion for burst damage for spellcasters. You used to have to go to Azeroth to get some of the materials for that, and they basically make the content relevant, and you can see probably the first beginnings of it start in vanilla, but you could just see more and more as they deviate. And I think they're trying to walk it back a little bit with BFA, but you can definitely see how they started taking people out of the world and the effects that had on the community.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think that there's things that I love the Bird Crusade, don't get me wrong, but there were little things that happen when the world started feeling smaller and smaller, when you don't have to go say to Azeroth or do this. It really took
flying mounts.
The flying. I mean, I guess don't get me wrong. I love when I first flew on my flying mount. It was an epic moment. But I didn't see the bad side of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I didn't know that it was going to basically destroy world PvP. And those are the things that we have to look at and say, like, well, is it worth it? Is the little bit of convenience worth it? Like when people talk about these little changes, these little quality of life changes, like being able to mail multiple things at once in vanilla, like. Yeah, okay, that would be nice. And at the end of the day, every time when I come down to it, like, yeah, vanilla wasn't perfect, okay? It wasn't. But when we start changing these little things, it ceases to be vanilla. You have to
It
accept
creates
it
a
the way it was.
mindset that changes are acceptable.
Absolutely.
That's the
I
You
problem.
rather
either
know
accept it
changes
the way it
than
was
like
or you don't want it. That's
Yeah.
I
that's the way I
hated
see it.
dishonorable kills, but I'd rather no changes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
and I think everyone's tired of hearing a slippery slope argument. So let's say it another way. Changing
Yeah.
one thing creates a mentality that changes are okay.
Yeah.
I think that's the better way of saying it, and I think that's it. Everyone's like, please don't say slippery slope again. Not everything's a slippery slope. So
It's a
okay,
slippery slope.
yeah, fine. This is another way of saying it. I think it makes your mind, it makes it okay. You know.
Yep.
Um,
And incremental changes sometimes. I'll use the football analogy. I mean, you guys, I've seen you guys wear football stuff before, so I know you guys are football fans. But I mean,
Yeah.
over the last 10 years, NFL and college football have in the name of safety, made these small incremental changes to the point where if you watch a game, from 20 years ago, it's not the same game anymore,
Nope.
no, it's
Not
and
at
we've
all.
accepted it
Look at hockey.
because all the changes were small and incremental. But if you
Mhm.
if you go 20 years back from now and you say, okay, we're gonna change things to the state that they are in 2018, and these are going to be the new rules of football, people would never accept that.
No. Never.
I agree. Yeah, and it's yeah. I mean, we're a sneak peek. We will have someone on next DefTalk that is more of a pro changes. I know we've had nothing but no changes people on DefTalk pretty much so far since the inception of this show. I promise you guys that if you guys are a slight change argument crowd, we do have someone coming next time or the time after that's more of a change person. So if you're sick and tired of hearing us say no changes, no changes, no
But I'll
changes,
tell you right now, they're not the kind of changes that are like
no, they're not.
LFR,
No,
this
of
kind of
course
thing.
not. But there's still changes, and I think that
Right,
that's
and the cool thing about this person is that they're looking at the changes not in order to. I mean, this for me, I personally don't agree with, but the way they're looking at it is to change it to make it feel more like it was a vanilla, not to make it something different, not to make it easier, not to make it
yes, that's true.
more. It's actually to make it more difficult. So that's why we thought this person would be a good person to maybe talk about these things and bring these because when you talk about the changes such as adding, I don't know who even would talk about this, but adding, like, say, LFR, things like that, multiple different raid tiers, say, like a heroic, a hardcore, things like that. That's out of the. But I feel like this is more in the realm of, I don't know, not just idiot.
It's not massive gameplay changes. No, they are changes that are in the spirit of Vanilla WoW. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Let's just
so
say
we'll talk about that.
Of course, we'll talk about that when it comes to it. But I just wanted to say to you, to our audience that is maybe perhaps not strictly no changes. We're trying to keep the, fair and biased. So.
So Sabever, what are your plans for the future? So when Classic comes out, I mean, do you plan on doing anything else in the future? I know you were saying you're messing around, maybe making some videos, things like that.
Right now I've got some footage already for a couple of things, but YouTube creation, content creation, it's not something I really want to do. That would be more like a hobby to me.
Mm.
I heard about you guys, watched your guys' show, got very interested in it, and that's really the only reason I came on. But I think some of the guys like me who are part of the Warcraft community or classic Warcraft community really appreciate the content creation that other creators are doing, and especially those people. And I know we're part of some of these communities too. People like Tips and SFan and Stay Safe and stuff like that, who make YouTube videos and like you guys do, and they can earn a living off of it. That's for them, and I will try and put together a couple of videos. They're going to be pretty crappy quality.
I'm gonna warn you now. It's very addictive, and I thought I started the same way, and not to say we're like better than that. I'm just saying that it does tend to, like, you're like, I made a video, then you like walk away, and you're like, I was really proud of that, and then you're like, I want to make another video. It does become a little addictive, but I'm really looking forward to you making some stuff. Definitely.
Yeah, I think it'll be, like I said, do it for yourself first. That I think is the main thing. You have to do it for yourself. If you feel like you want to do it for you, and this is something that you enjoy, do it for yourself first. And if you decide that it's something that you like, and then go from there. But the reason why I really love having not just content creators on the show, but people like yourself who are part of the communities is there's so much to be said, and there's people like yourself, Sabever, like the you are the heart and soul of like what made vanilla, and have you and people like yourself come on here and talk. It's so refreshing to hear the things that you love about the game, the things that draw you to it, and the things that keep you interested in it. So I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show.
I do want to have one more question though.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, Sabever, what is your funniest Warcraft moment?
I kind of thought about this a little bit, and I remember, and I only vaguely remember that I was part of a guild back in vanilla, and this was when I was on my warrior, and I think we were running. I think we were running Upper Blackrock Spire. No, this would have had to have been Lower Blackrock Spire, but for some reason, I remember it being more than 5 players. And is that true? What was
LBRS? And it was 10-man previously.
You can do it with 10. Okay. You can do it. Yeah, yeah. 10.
I believe it was 10-man at some point.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we were running through, and there were a little bit of these were not people who were min-maxing, and we didn't know half of what we were doing during the game. But there was one guy on there, and I don't remember what class he played, but I want to say he was a shaman, and he was a little bit annoying, but it was kind of funny. Somehow one of the members of the raid convinced him that in the lava was a chest with an epic, and somehow he managed to jump out there. And he got so far away, they just kept telling him, no, you need to go further, and they couldn't reach him to res him.
That is hysterical, dude. That sounds like something I would do to like this guy. We used to play. No, with this guy we used to play with. He was in love with paladins. But he was. Don't say his actual name, but he was something we would do to him probably.
No, he wouldn't have fell for that. I think anybody would have fell for the Shrek.
Yeah, probably Shrek.
Yeah. He actually fell in the lava and died there plenty of times before. But...
In BRD, outside of in Black Rock Mountain. That's really funny. That's great. Yeah, there's a chest in the lava there. Just go get it. Oh, a little farther.
But what you were saying though a few minutes Camp is so true. I remember when they made the Blizzard announcement, I sat on YouTube and I watched videos of people's reaction to it, and that's where I kind of learned about some of the new people who were creating content. And it is so, I think, from the perspective of anybody who played in Classic, and maybe I don't have as much experience as some other person who played in Classic, but it is so awesome to see these content creators that have the same passion that you do, and are willing to create content and bring it to the masses. I travel a ton for work, and every time I'm in the truck, I'm watching or listening to YouTube videos of new content and stuff like that, or new interviews, and it's pretty awesome.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
I'm really glad that you're part of this and you're part of our interviews. Yeah. And now you can say, hey, look, I was on Defcamp Melderon TV's DefTalk. Not that it's like a huge thing, but at least you can say, like, hey, at least you have this.
Well, 2 years from now, who knows?
Maybe. Yeah.
No, but I really mean it from the bottom of my heart. I love having people like yourself on, and I think it's so important that if anyone from Blizzard ever watches this or sees this, that these are the guys that matter. People like Sabever, people that come on this show, not just because if someone's a content creator or what. This person is someone who is a loyal fan of World of Warcraft, and they deserve to have their voice be heard. They deserve to get the game that they want to play, and, boom. There you go. That's it. I don't know what else I'm saying.
Yeah. So. Just quickly, I'm going to do some housekeeping before we end. DefTalk is now on SoundCloud. It's soundcloud.com/def_meltv. We also have just been approved to be on Google Play, so you can find us on there for DefTalk, not for anything else. We are going to put the Vanilla discussion up there at some point. We also have a new Patreon. If you guys are interested in donating to our channel and helping us make better content, more content, X, Y, and Z. There are some really interesting tier rewards you can get. Head over to patreon.com/def_meltv. Also, if you want to be on DefTalk, we don't care who you are. We don't care what you do. Melderon.gaming@gmail.com. Tell us you want to be on, and we will put you in the schedule. We will put you. We guarantee you'll get on eventually. It might take us a little while, but we'll get you on. Last but not least, definitely not least, Sabever has a Twitter account. It's @CurseOfTongues, and you can follow him there. And hopefully one day he will be making videos, and we'll let you guys know when he does that.
Or you can play with him on Classic and have some fun.
Yeah, if you want to do that, join Discord, and we'll hook everything up in Discord. Yep. We can't tell you where we're playing, but we can tell you we have a Discord and Twitter below. Yeah. So if you're interested in getting in contact with us, Discord, we have Twitter, and we have email. So those are the ways to get in touch with us.
Yeah. But anyway, I just want to say thank you so much to Beaver for coming out tonight. I know you have a crazy schedule. I know you have a lot of work stuff going on. So thank you so much for putting the time together and coming out with us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Yep. All right, guys. Until next time, this is Defcamp signing off.
And Melderon signing off. And
Sabever.
All right, guys.
Peace.
Keep on binding and grinding, baby.
Hey, yeah.